Hello, Final Fantasy Randomizer fans. I am ADR. I'm here. Whoops, sorry about that. But I'm here in the booth with WindFox, and we are going to be doing comms over our own race we did last week. And hello, WindFox. How are you doing today?
I am doing all right early in the morning for me, but this is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, like you said, this is a ladder race from last week, vanilla-ish, modified vanilla-ish flags.
Yeah, what's going to be fun today is there's a bunch of players who don't know the vanilla progression of the game. And while we randomized a handful of things like class blurs and a little bit of pricing, this is going to be an overall vanilla experience with one big exception. The classes that start with key items. So that's going to play into our character select.
Yeah, I know I actually went into this not knowing vanilla at all, so I had a week to learn the whole route and pretty much everything that's involved, chest locations, everything, so definitely a fun experience.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, vanilla is a game that I played many times, going all the way back to, about when the game came out in the 90s. So I've known it quite well, but there's a few differences with the randomizer, and one of that is that vanilla is arguably the worst seed. Because of the weapons and magic progression, you always start with the weak stuff at the beginning. In most rando seeds, some of that's going to be swapped around, so you're going to have much stronger weapons and armor and magic than you would normally have in a run. So that makes the fights quite different.
Yeah, I know as we go through this race, we both clearly have our own strategies that we kind of worked on and thought up of. A lot of practice went into this. So yeah, we'll be going over pretty much our thought process as we're going through the seed and probably the prep we had done coming up to this.
Well, I'm going to start the game here. We will talk about the rest of it as we go. So, about 10 seconds to go time. So party select here, I went with a fairly traditional fire thief, white mage, red mage. Oh, let me resync that. There, good enough. And part of that is because, for one, it's just a strong party in the vanilla game, but for two, there is some starting with key items, including a crown and I believe a crystal on my party that I really look forward to. How about you?
So I went with the more actual vanilla style comp of the double fighter, double red. Your entire tier players, the ones doing my research, went double fighter, double black mage. Um, Going with pretty much just the starting crown, knowing that I'm going to have to go get that crystal anyways and turn in the crystal and kind of do that full loop anyways. I'm guessing you did it just to skip the Astos fight and just go straight to the crystal at the beginning here.
Yeah, I liked the idea of being able to just route it right in as I'm walking by. And Crystal is going to turn into Herb, which turns into Key, which turns into TNT. So being able to skip Marsh Cave essentially is going to really help a lot. And of course, when you're talking with Crown, you can go get that anyway, but it's a little bit more backtracking.
Yeah, so my thought process, I almost went with the crystal pick as well and decided against it because we'll see much later when I'm pretty sure you skip the Astos fight. I do the Astos fight. He gives like 2,000 gold, which is in vanilla a lot in the early game.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Astos can be really quite a tough fight in the vanilla game too, because he's going to hit you with a bunch of instant kills that you have little defense against at this point.
And we see here early, looks like I got a couple overworld encounters. You managed to get the 1 plus the 1 in Topher that most people get. I had one small misstep in the overworld that triggered a second fight. You'll see a third fight I get in Topher, so I fall behind early with a misstep in the overworld. Yeah, as far as early game purchases in the shop, I took advantage of everyone being able to hold the rapier and the chainmail early, giving me the early just single target swings, conserve the magic. It looks like you went more the magic heavy route early. with the lits.
Yeah, to some extent. Magic is a lot more reliable early game because the hit percent is so low when you get started. You do a lot of swings and misses. And then because we were vanilla in many ways, but we did turn on a little bit of weapon armor randomization and a little bit of cost randomization. It was plus or minus, I think 3 and 15% on that, just to change things up a bit. And since the iron hammer rolled up, I decided to buy that instead, as it would be a little bit more reliable than the rapier that rolled down a bit. So here you can see me doing that crystal turn just on the way to provoke her. And it's a nice little routing advantage. And then you get a few more items. When we get to 12 key items, the experience is going to double. So that's something to keep in mind too. And the goal on that, I set it to 1.5x experience, which is higher than vanilla, but then 1/2 the encounter rate, because the encounters are just kind of boring to me. But then when you get double key items, your experience doubles, which means your later game grind can go a lot faster.
Yeah, and we'll be coming up here to our first grind here after the pirates fight. I think we took different grinds. I think you did the Kaizoku fights, and I went with the ogre grind.
Yeah, so Kaizoku's just a fun fact. Back on the NES, I have actually noticed that when you turn it on, you hit Lem the first time every time. Now, I didn't realize at the time that was what we now call encounter manipulation, off the hard reset. But I did notice it back then and decided to use it here with a little more intentionality. Kaizoku's give you reasonably decent gold for the early game, and I think gold is more important than experience to some extent. Then you need to get experience too to actually get spell charges, but gold lets you buy the equipment to make your guys not spinning wet noodles.
Yeah, I decided to go with the ogre fight. Obviously less gold in the Kaizokus, but offers more experience, so my grind was slightly faster, but I had to look for gold elsewhere. It was like kind of like backups, you'd say. And that's kind of where the Astos fight kind of came in my thought process, picking my party comp and what I kind of wanted to do with it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Astos is a lot of money early game, so that's really nice to take.
Yeah, looks like I've caught up to the Pirates on. I'm actually still slightly behind, because you already did the crystal turn in, and yeah, and you're starting your Kaizoku grind here. After this, I'm pretty sure I just buy a couple spells and then just go press up and down for like the next 5 to 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure we both grind the next 5 to 10 minutes. So the next part of this run isn't going to be the most entertaining thing.
It gives us a chance to talk about you. In the randomizer, a lot of times the NPC dialogue has no meaning, whereas here, because it's original items, we get a little more of an idea of what the story is. So, what is the crystal? The crystal is Matoya's eye, essentially. It lets her see. So, when you first talk to Matoya, she says she's blind, she can't see anything, and that somebody stole her crystal. Turns out that was Astos. And Matoya is willing to trade the herb, which wakes up the elf prince, in exchange to get her crystal back. But to do that, you got Astos pretending to be an elf king, sends you down to go get his crown back before he'll part with that crystal. So that makes the early game fetch quest, and it's a little bit of pretty generic RPG story, but story nonetheless.
Yeah, I know nothing of this story. I'm not gonna lie, as far as I know, the story is you're the warrior. I think the Warriors of Light, I think is what it is. And you have to go light the orbs and then go fight chaos. And like, as far as I know, that's the generic story.
Yeah, there's just a tiny bit more to it than that, but being an NES game, you have to fill in a lot between the lines. But the dialogue talks about how the elements are off, so the wind isn't blowing like it used to, the sea is more wild than it used to be, the earth is rotting away, and farms aren't producing as well, and that's because of the fiends taking over the power of the orbs. So as you defeat them, it's supposed to let nature restore its balance, but then it also opens up a gateway to the past where you end up fighting chaos. And then the NPC dialogue also gives you hints as to where to go next. So in Canaria, they're all telling you, please save the princess. Down in Elfland, there's an NPC who will say he's heard of an airship that's buried in the desert somewhere. In Melman, there's people who will say that there's a titan that you have to feed rubies to, stuff like that. Just telling you where to go in the next quest. But I haven't actually talked to the NPCs in this game since, like, I don't know, 1992. Because once you know it the first time, you're not going to do that again. But it's still, that's part of the original experience, trying to piece together the clues.
Yeah, I think that's one of the appeals with just RPGs as a whole. Is just kind of you're solving a puzzle is what you're doing as you're playing the game. And some games they're more obvious. Some games it's a little less obvious, and you have to kind of dig for it a little bit more. So that's probably the appeal of why the Final Fantasy 1, 4, 5, and 6 communities are all kind of here. We all enjoy that genre and the appeal.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you'll notice on my side of the screen I just bought Fire 2, which is a pretty important spell to have early on. If you want to go to the Peninsula of Power, you can use Fire 2 to take down Frost Wolves, and that's going to skyrocket you ahead in experience and gold. But without Fire 2, you're going to have a hard time winning any of those fights. So one of the common strategies in the early game is to grind up to that and maybe to the Silver Sword, which makes your melee characters not useless essentially. And then you can head up there and pick up some more gold. But at the same time, running a red mage means you don't get a charge of that level 3 magic until level 5 or 6, which is quite a little experience grind as well.
Yeah, if I remember my notes correctly, I think it's level 5 for the black mage, level 6 for the red mage. And you actually told me about the Peninsula. I remember this. You told me about the Peninsula Power literally the day before the race. We did our race. And I actually ended up booting up a seed and running a seed and kind of throwing in the Peninsula Power grind after getting Fire 2. And I actually implemented it in this run because I felt I ended up saving roughly 3 minutes of time of grinding by going back up there and doing that grind.
Yeah, that's such a game changer. The first time I heard about that, it was long after I first played the game, and I didn't know where it was. Because it talked about this peninsula, and if you go from Provoca up and to the right, there's a chunk of land that kind of sticks out, and I thought that was it, and I couldn't find the fight. No, you have to go right first and then up, and it's a little 2 to 4 square thing that is next to Lefeinian. And because of the way the encounter tables worked out, that happens to be considered part of the Lefeinian encounter table, which is way late game, instead of the Provoca encounter table, which is early. And sometimes you see that when people play other flags in the rando too, just not as much because there's usually other options available in randomization with open progression and whatnot.
Yeah, we can see you're already at Dwarf Cave. You're turning in your TNT here. Talk to the Hurry Dwarf. And you're getting ready to pretty much leave the Inner Sea. Get your Excalibur here. I actually forgot I had the Adamant and didn't pick up the Excalibur my first trip through here, so
you might notice I talked to Smithy twice, and that's because in the rando when you get the Excal, it plays the full-on key item music, and in vanilla it doesn't do that, it just gives a little ding. So I missed him, like, wait, what? And then I talked to him again, and he didn't say what the item was, so then I checked the inventory to make sure it was still there. And it's just one of those things you get used to, these habits, playing the rando, and vanilla is just slightly different, and you have to remind yourself how to do it. But another reason why I wanted to go ahead and get that key out of the way is because there is good treasure in this dwarf key lock, Dragon Sword and Silver Armor. In the vanilla game, Dragon Sword was not that great. A lot of times I would sell it, and they would give you money for another Silver Sword, which is just about as good. But Rando fits that. type and elemental bonus, that's what it's called. So when you have a dragon sword and you're attacking various items like dragons or agamas, it'll do an extra 10, or if you change your flags, you can do a lot more damage on each hit, which really adds up.
Yeah, I know throughout my practice, I ended up picking up a large majority of the elemental swords, because, you know, like you said, we have the pluses and minuses on the year. I was like, well, you know, I pick up the coral sword in Earth later on. I'm just like, if this rolls higher, you know, maybe I'm going to be using that for Kraken instead of something else.
Yeah, I picked that one up too. It's a nice sword.
But yeah, throughout the run, there's plenty of safeties I'm pretty sure we both get. Yeah, I'm still doing the grind. I ended up not getting very much. I didn't get favorable encounters with the ogres. I got it like once every 4 fights or 5 fights, even after hard resets. So the grind took longer than it normally does for me.
Oh. One of the classes also had starting with Rod, which you saw in my inventory. So now I'm looking at my levels. Level 4 is not really sufficient to do the Earth Cave. In vanilla, it's absolutely not going to be close enough. But with half encounter rate, and thanks to the rando run, is going to be a lot more reliable than it would be in vanilla. I'm thinking maybe we can go in, get a little bit done, and avoid the double dip that vanilla has, because in the original game, you kill Vampire, get Ruby from behind him, then you have to go out, cross the Titan's tunnel to Sarter, get Rod, and then go back down to fight Lich. And you can try to combine that if you have an early Rod.
Yeah, I think it was the White Mage. I think that had the starting rod, I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
So you can see I am just now getting down to Elfland for the first time to buy Fire 2 on my 3 casters. But I'm still a level short on my red mages to cast it. So I do a little bit more of a grind here on the ogres behind Elfland to be able to cast it. So I ended up falling behind a bit here in the early game, but I catch up pretty quick because I ended up getting a level advantage over you to kind of let me catch up on that time with damage output.
Well, the vanilla game had unrunnable encounters too, which I just hit one. The general rule there is if it's a trap tile, it is an unrunnable thing, even if you bump into it later. So in Earth, I just had to fight a few wizards, and because those are an unrunnable trap in Marsh Cave, when you encounter them in Earth, they're still unrunnable, which can be a pretty ugly surprise when you get into those fights.
Yeah, especially you're level 4 here. They could have one-shot you. You obviously got turn priority, which was nice to get through the fight. But yeah, wizards, when you're in Marsh Cave doing that trap tile, like, you're only supposed to be like level 3 or 4 when you're in there, or even level 5 at most.
So now you can see that instead of walking out of Earth and saving that progress, I decided to keep going and try my chance with Lich. And when you have Script Shuffle turned off, you know the vanilla spell list. Lich will throw out Ice 2 as the first spell. And if you get lucky, you might not use that, but you kind of have to expect it. And I did buy a... Well, actually, no, I'll come back to that, so I won't spoil it. But we'll see what happens soon. And those cockatrices will Stone Touch. Those are not nice to see. I'd be terrified of them in the vanilla game. And soft potions cost like 800 gold vanilla, and you didn't start with one. So that would be a very significant expense.
Yeah, I know when I was doing my practice runs and things like that, when I was in Earth Cave, like this was like really the first place I was really terrified of, because if anyone got stone touched, then I never had the money to get soft, so I just instantly reset the dungeon and started back over, because there was almost no recovering from that.
Yeah, it was just mean. Similarly, in vanilla, all the undead enemies have stun touch. That includes Lich, but it also includes those annoying ghosts and geese and whatnot as you fight. So getting stun locked is something that would happen a lot, and it would not be pretty. Let's just shout out that ice too, and you can see that my plan to temper out the fighter and attack, that plan's gone. Now it's hoping that harm's gonna work, and well, it's not looking very good.
Yeah, and obviously the fight lasted more turns than expected. You went all the way down to that lit 2 in the script.
Yeah.
So it looks like the redive is happening again. I actually didn't even watch your VOD at all after the race. When we had agreed to do the vodcast up here, I was like, I'll just watch it for the first time here.
Oh, ditto. But you can see at first I'm like, maybe I should redive, but then it came to mind that it doesn't matter. The ice 2 is gonna kill me just as bad. So now I went over to the Hall of Giants, and let's see if I can take these down, because Giants are pretty good gold for this point of the game. And decent experience too.
So I know when I first started playing the Rendo, so I've been playing FF1 Rendo for off and on for about 2 years now, but I haven't really gone into it until like the last 6 months. So I started taking it more serious. I had no idea there were trap tiles on the left side of the entrance there up until about 6 months ago.
Oh yeah, and when you're playing the vanilla game, you take that wrong turn and it just feels like there's fights every step, but sometimes it feels like there's fights every step in vanilla anyway. So it's not until you get 3 or 4 steps into it that you're like, wait a minute, this is an awful lot of the same fight. And then to get back out, you either have to take the fights again or just reset, and it's really an ugly surprise when you first learn it's there.
You can see over on my side, I'm just now getting into the Astos fight here. Like I said, this was more of my backup for that early gold to be able to get Fire 2 and even my level 4 build at the same time as well. So I was able to kind of get my level 3 and level 4 builds at the same time. To kind of save a little bit of time to having to walk back across the town multiple times. So Astos going down, pushing everyone slightly closer to level 7 there. Getting the gold that I thought I was going to get to pretty much finish off my early game chopping.
So while you're making progression, over on my side, I took a wipe to those giants after taking a wipe to Lich, and then took another wipe on just a random encounter. So my plan, I'm starting to realize this isn't going to work, and I have to readjust. So now I'm going to go in for a handful of treasure boxes, but then go out and switch to plan B, which is going to be, I think, the lengthiest grind of my seed.
Yeah, I know I took like 3 or 4 much smaller grinds just kind of staggered throughout the seed, as I knew I need to hit certain level breakpoints to be able to push through the next set of the game, instead of doing like one big grind like you did.
Yeah. So now you can see that I can kill bulls, so I'm doing a hard reset tent, go in and kill a bull. So it's really, it's a miniature grind using a bit of encounterment just because it's a fight I can actually take.
Yeah, as I'm doing my overworld running back and forth between the North Continent and South of the continent, I'm taking fights along the way. This has been just something I thought of in one of my practice seeds, that I can take some of these more higher end fights to get some passive experience in between dungeons if the packs were large enough, or I felt the experience was decent enough, because I did a lot of experimenting with experience and gold and all sorts of stuff to kind of determine which fights are worth taking in the overworld and which ones aren't. So there's going to be fights you see me run from, some that I just take that don't seem like I should, but I felt that the experience in gold was worth it.
Yeah, when I played vanilla, I would almost never run from fights at all. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that your odds of running are not great in vanilla. And then two, if you don't know which fights are runnable or not, the game doesn't tell you. So it can just say can't run over and over and over again. And this is why I actually have a bit of a... I don't like the change run to wait flag. It's one of those things that gives you information that you didn't have in the original game. And a lot of people, of course, love it because it is useful information to have. But I do feel like it changes the game a bit, because instead of taking fights, you can more reliably know, okay, if I run, I have a good chance of that running and succeeding, instead of you saying, if I run, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, I actually didn't even know that was, obviously never played vanilla. I didn't know that the randomizer had that quality of life change to know if a fight's unrunnable or not. I don't even know if that's a flag you can change on the website. It might be something, if it is, I may actually just play with myself.
Yeah, it's on the adjustment screen under conveniences. But yeah, I tried to really dive ahead and go into Earth Cave, and the game had other ideas. So now, it looked like I had a nice solid 10-minute lead, and that's pretty much erased now, because your plan of taking the fights and leveling more like you would in an original run is now paying dividends to you.
Yeah, because I just grabbed the TNT. I'm about ready to leave the Inner Sea and head over to Titan's Trove, or I guess my first Earth Cave dip for the Ruby to head over to Titan's Trove. I think by the time I actually get to Lich, I'm like level 10 or 11, so I am much higher level than I was in most of my practice runs, so I felt very comfortable going into Earth Cave at this point. And you can see here, this is where I forget to grab the Excalibur, because I just completely forgot I had that item in my inventory. I ended up backtracking, I don't know, like 45 minutes from now to come grab it.
Yeah, that's nice to have. It's not a big deal though, because you can't promote for a while anyway, so it'll be okay. On my screen you saw me checking Troper's grave in Elfland where it says imps are safe. In the original game it said here lies Erdrick, and I believe in Japanese it said here lies Link, so in both cases there's little Easter eggs referencing other Nintendo games.
I think I want to say that the keys in Zelda were actually named after what the bats said in this game when you click on them when they talk to you and they go key key. I think they named the bats keys after this game was released.
That's amusing. I did not know that. That sounds fun.
Like, I haven't actually looked at the bat sprites, but I want to say they're actually the exact same sprite as well, used in both games. I'll have to later look into both sprites, but they look like identical sprites as well.
Wow. Of course, there's only so many ways you can draw a bat when you're working with 4 colors and 16 pixels.
Yeah, that's very true.
Alright, so over on my screen, I'm finally starting to take a bit of levels and pick up some spells. And one of them is I did buy A Ice, which is available at level 4 white. And knowing that Lich shoots out that Ice too, that spell can give you quite a bit of protection. So, the A spells don't get... Oh, on WindFox's screen, you're going up... That's what I thought was a Peninsula of Power back before I looked it up on the young dial-up internet. But anyway, the A Ice, A Lit spells, they don't get much attention in Rando because you don't know when to cast them. But when you have Script Shuffle turned off, it gives you the potential to survive a fight that you otherwise would have been wiped out in by a script. On the other hand, in Rando, because offensive magic is usually so overpowered, literally any shuffle is going to get you advanced. Like, you know, Nuke cannot be any higher than level 8, so it's by necessity going to be easier to get, or at least equal to, vanilla than it was after you randomize it. And offensive magic can really change things. Lich only has 400 hit points, but when you're level 4 and you're shooting out level 1 spells, 400 is kind of a lot.
Yeah, 400, especially for your first like major boss, when you're really pumping out 25 to 50 damage, you're looking at 3-4 turns, and yeah, the scaling gets much higher in the bosses later on. Yeah, you can see over on my side, this is where I start my Peninsula Power grind here. Utilizing my AoE spells, Fire 2, my fighters both having silver swords at this point, so they're pumping out significant damage. I think one of the hammers rolled up really high, which is why I have one of the fighters with a hammer.
Yeah, Silver Hammer in the original game, you'd probably stick on a white mage just so they have something to do. But yeah, when it rolls up, it can be legitimately decent.
Yeah, you can see the Peninsula Power. I've taken 3 fights and I've already gained 2 levels in just 3 fights up there on the Peninsula Power off of the Zombol Troll 4-packs.
Yeah, you are level 8 right now, I am level 6, and I'm re-diving Earth at this point.
Yeah, I don't remember what level I take this grind to. I want to say it's like 9 or 10. But pretty much while I was doing these grinds, I was like reviewing my notes and just kind of prepping for my next set. Looks like I take it to level 9 there. And then take off for Earth Cave.
Yeah, original game would be about level 10 that you would consider Earth, so that's a reasonable thing. Once the encounter levels turn down, that gives you a little bit more wiggle room. A good chunk of the original game is about endurance. Lich, by itself, like, yeah, it's a challenge in the original game, but what's really hard is getting there with the resources to defeat Lich. And when you're taking fights, it's every, I don't know, 8, you'll take between 8 and 14, I believe, based on the original table and number of steps, and they can be really ugly. So just making your way through that is the endurance challenge of the game.
Yeah, I know the day after our race, I actually booted up the vanilla ROM that I have. And realized I can't play the actual true vanilla game after playing the randomizer with all the quality of life stuff. Like, it is such a slog, but I will will myself into playing the vanilla game and beating it at some point. It's just the quality of life stuff has kind of spoiled me.
Oh yeah, the randomizer has cut so many speed corners. So when you play vanilla, and at the end of every fight, the victory fanfare, do 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 do, that's going to play every single game. In the rando, you basically never hear that. It cuts off halfway through, and then little things like when you attack and it does a puffs, those are almost twice as long in the vanilla game as well. So in fact, it might even be 3 times as long. It's much longer than it is in the rando. And those little things all add up to make the game feel slower.
Thanks. Yeah, I actually ended up going back to continuing the grind a little bit more. I think I actually took it up to level 10 or 11 actually. And you're going back through Earth still. Looks like you're on the vampire floor.
Yeah, I just got the ruby and I'm actually going to walk it out and save this time. But what that's going to do is save some levels, give me a chance to refill the MP before going in to fight Lich. And I just checked the magic points, saw that A ice is still at 0, and that kind of changed my mind. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to have that anyway. I might as well just go in and take my chances. So it's a bit of unplanned flip-flopping in my mind.
Yeah, and as they're saying there's the unrunnable wizards there from Marsh Cave showing up there in your encounter table.
Well, when you have the coral sword equipped, the wizards aren't too bad. You see, the fire took it down without much trouble. They are weak to lightning magic, because despite being called wizard, they're more like a sea demon, so they have weakness to lightning. They pop up again in Final Fantasy Tactics, by the way, where you can encounter them in the swamp levels, and they're still weak to lightning magic there too.
Yeah, I haven't played Tactics in a long time. I personally can't play Tactics anymore because I just the urge to want to cheese the entire game makes it hard to play it anymore.
I replayed it earlier this year, first time in quite a long time, and my idea was let's try not to grind and see what the game feels like. And chapters 1 and 2 of that game are difficult if you don't play at least a little bit of grinding. Some of those fights are just brutal.
Oh, Tactics is an incredibly hard game. If you don't grind, you just kind of progress the game like most RPGs you're supposed to. It gets pretty difficult. I'm heading to Earth finally. I'm level 10 for my dive in to get the ruby.
Over on my screen, Lich just died, but then you hit a bunch of undead a step later, and that is it's a nightmare. You can easily get stun locked, and then they'll pick you off 1 hit point at a time until you die. But got a little bit lucky there and was able to get away.
Yeah, that's one thing I was really worried about, even at much higher level, was getting stun locked or stone touched to death, and just anything that can happen in Earth. I think you're level 7 or 8 right now.
About
just finishing Earth, and I'm level 10. Significantly higher hit points. Yeah, it's actually I'm level 9. I think I hit 10 halfway through here, but yeah, it's a bit easier for me to get through because that level advantage. But I'm still down a whole Earth cave.
So, vanilla item progression. You start off, you save the princess, she gives you the loot, and the king builds you the bridge. That lets you get to Provoker, you get your ship, and then you take your ship down to Elfland. They talk about the missing crown. So you go to Marsh Cave and get crown. You both skipped that because it's starting with key item. And Marsh is a very ugly dungeon, so you want to skip that. But then you take crown, go up to Astos, it gives you Matoya's crystal. Take that to her, she gives you the herb. That gets you to the Elf Prince, who gives you the key. Then you go get the TNT out of the armory, and that you take to the Dwarf Narek to open the canal, which lets you get to Melmond. Then after you defeat Lich, these sages here in Crescent Lake, and we did turn on the confused old men just to, have some fun with them. Normally they stand in a circle. But these guys will then give you the canoe, opening up the next chunk of the game. And up to this point, things are pretty linear. But with Canoe, you can do what they tell you to do and go to the volcano, or you can ignore what they tell you and go down to either Castle of Ordeals, which is available with Canoe and Ship, or you can go to the Ice Cave, which is also a canoe opening thing. So you finally get a real decision in the game, and this is really where I start to like this game, because it starts to feel more like an open world where you can go off the rails. And as you can see over here, I am not going to Volcano.
Yeah, obviously, being speedrunners, you want to get that floater. You want to go fast. But looks like you go to Ordeals, get the tail.
And more importantly, there's the Zeus Gauntlet in here, which casts Lightning 2. And once you get that, now you have a free spell that you can start spamming. Item magic in this game, I'd say it's completely overpowered. But once you get it, you can use it. These sorcerers show up in Ordeals and in Ice Cave, and they have Death Touch, so that's a fight that in the vanilla game would be terrifying. But the room I just passed in the upper right, that is where you can pick up that Zeus Gauntlet, but it's a linked chest to the final room. So when you're playing rando, sometimes you would go pick that up early so you can have it for these upcoming fights, but more often than not you would just skip it because you get the same item moments later anyway.
Yeah, I am just now coming up to the Lich floor in Earth. The lead that you had is almost completely gone at this point. Just because the level grind that I took and your multiple wipes into Earth.
Yeah. Preparation pays off.
So I kind of talked about my strategy and my prep coming into this. What exactly was your strategy coming into this? Obviously, you knew the vanilla game coming into this. I didn't. So what was your strategy and prep coming into this race?
Well, my plan was just to look at the items and try to think about how much I could skip off, just knowing that vanilla progression so well. And then knowing which items, and I can rattle off a number of vanilla stats off the top of my head, like Lich's 400 hit points, or Lich 2's 500 hit points, and opening the game with a nuke spell, fun fact. But really, I was just going to lean on the experience of old and try to make something happen with it. Other than that, I played the game enough times that I felt okay. These zombie dragons in Ordeals are a pretty good grind item too. They die pretty quickly to harm and to fire, and you have some good spells, but being undead, they have stun touch, and I got a little bit overconfident here and started to regret that I picked that second fight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I used the zombie Ds here as my mid-game grind. I think I went to 13 or 14 on this grind here when I get there. Yeah, I killed Lich. He lasted 1 round. Just because I had that break point on the extra hit on my fighters. Both wielding the Dragon +2 and the Coral +2 for that increased damage, plus the Fire 2 spam. He lasted 1 round. Just because the level advantage early is showing that it's paying off, but do I catch up in time from my grinds to even it out later? Like that's kind of also what my thought process was if you don't take these grinds or you cut your grinds off short, I'm losing time by grinding, but do I get that advantage in levels is kind of where I was at.
So So at this point I have some money to spare and decide to pick up some items to use later. Using cabins and tents to save and reset is a skill we learn in Lorando. I never knew that in vanilla, but when you watch vanilla speedrunners, a lot of them will know how to do that kind of thing too. And now on my screen you see I'm heading up to this dock, which is how you get to Ice Cave. In Lorando we usually play with the extended open progression flag on, which makes a connection from that lower left little forest that I just passed a moment ago to the lower section. So you can go from Crescent Lake to Volcano to Ice and it's all connected. In Vanilla, no, that was closed off. So that little river maze could get you pretty horribly lost. I remember one time I spent a lot of time down on that bottom side, like, I know there's an ice cave, how do I get there? And I was so frustratedly lost at that point until realizing that no, you have to come to it from the top. But the rando and the spirit of opening the game up just connects those two dots for you.
Yeah. On my side, I for a split second thought about diving ice before going to ordeals and getting that floater, and decided against it. Realized that Zeus Gauntlet was more important when going through ice than risking going in a few levels, or I think in my situation like 1 or 2 levels lower than you're supposed to, and decided just to follow into ordeals for that Zeus Gauntlet.
Yeah, that's a really heads up play. You don't think to go to ordeals at this point in the game unless you know the game. So that's really, I'm kind of impressed to see that from you here.
Well, you know, from the conversations we had, like leading up to the race, just the amount of research I put into this, and this, so that the spreadsheet that I showed you the one time, like 3 or 4 days before the race, like that spreadsheet is like now multiple tabs now in Google Sheets. It looks as if I was running the actual vanilla game. That's how much work I put into this race.
Wow. So the ice cave in vanilla is a very scary place. The monsters are all really rude. You got those kill touch sorcerers, you got stun touch undead, and it's a fairly long walk to get anywhere. But this is one point in the game where the treasure becomes somewhat worth it if you want to take the chance to go get it. So this is why I'm going off this way trying to pick up a handful of these boxes. There's good money in here, there's some decent weapons and armor as well. But to get out of this, you have to walk back through some of those trap tiles, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you actually decided to take on these frost dragon fights. Right there, you just saw, you know, Blizzard. They can open up with Blizzard and it wipes your party. Very, very dangerous, but very lucrative fight at the same time.
Yep. And part of that was brain farting because of in the rando when you have skill shuffle turned on. A lot of the fights that are very dangerous in vanilla are not so bad at all because they're nasty scripts that sent somewhere else where you're not fighting them. So I took that wipe in part because I forgot how dangerous Blizzard can be.
I can tell you one of my practice seeds when I saw what was in those chests, when I was looking up, you know, what every chest in the game has, and I just did one practice seed where I went in there to go grab the chest and ran into the frost dragons, and they just one-shot my party. I was like, nope, never going there again. Like, those chests do not exist in my memory in a vanilla game.
It's a pity because ice armor is really, it's got good absorb, it's got good elemental resistance, it's solidly worth picking up. If you can.
Yeah, exactly. If you can get through both of the fights of the frost dragons.
So you can see me still taking a few extra steps to pick up that flame sword. That is probably a mistake. A lot of times what you want to do here is just drop in one of the holes and get moving. Because every step you take is another chance for another nasty fight.
Yeah, I know for a fact I grabbed that flame sword. You know the elemental weapons are I feel are too good to not grab. Obviously, if you're speedrunning this game at the highest level, you're probably not going to grab it because you already have your step and counter manipulation, all that stuff already set in mind, and you're not going to grab those.
The flame sword is the first real upgrade after the silver sword when you're playing originally, and it feels so nice to have. So on my side, we just saw level up. 2 of my guys are level 9, 2 of them are level 11, and you are taking some zombie dragons.
Yeah, I am level 12 at this point. I am flying through. It looks like, yeah, level 13. I just hit level 13 now. So I am playing this super safe, just to make sure I can get through the run without any nasty wipes, and just kind of playing on hoping you are the one that makes the mistakes that lets me pull ahead. That's mostly the strategy I had, is banking on you making more mistakes than me, kind of play style.
I could not resist taking the eye at least more than once. Eye is not bad until he starts spamming instant death spells at you.
So I know when you'll see when I get to Ice Cave, the eye is pretty much my final grind of the run up until Volcano for like the last 2 levels, because I am at such a high level that his instant death for the most part doesn't affect my party. Obviously he has Quad X as part of his arsenal. My entire party was over 300 hit points, so I didn't care about that. The rub I mostly didn't care for. I think he has, it's either Quake or Bane that I mostly didn't care for.
Yes, I don't recall what it is, but yeah, levels are the most solid defense to that. And Pro Ring, of course, helps a lot too, but you can't get that until coming back. But that's why Eye is a frequent fight to come back to after you do have Pro Ring. Then you might come back to and do a grind on it. It's, as far as EXP per minute goes, I don't think it can be beat in the original.
Yeah, I think in my researching experience, I think the next best grind, a lot of people think it's the Agama fights in the Agama floor of Volcano. It's actually the red D trap tile before carry. Produces more experience than the Agama grind.
Indeed. But you also have an off-step encounter. So Agama, there's 2 Agama traps right next to each other. You can bounce between them, and there's no risk of off-step fights. You know what you're getting every time. Whereas that red dragon, you go off, you could hit another fight that might surprise you with something ugly. And that's something that you have to balance the risk and benefit of. I'm going down there.
Yeah, I'm still taking the zombie D fight. I'm pretty sure I take these grinds up until I pretty much run out of all of my spell charges. Because I know as soon as I leave, I'm going to go back to Crescent, use the inn before heading into Ice Cave. So I'm pretty sure I just take this all the way till I'm out of charges.
Yeah. So over on my screen, I now have the airship, and that's where the game opens up even more. The the game wants you at this point to go into. You have to go to Oasis and get Lobato, and then Gaia to turn that into Ottail. Then it wants you to go into Sea Shrine and do the orbs in order: Earth, Fire, Water, Air. But it doesn't force you to do that. So something I would like doing in the old game is you go in and pick up the slab, and then you can go into Sky and get your Excalibur before you fight Kraken. And over here, I'm doing a bit of a side quest already and picking up promotion on the way. After going ordeals, you have tail, and you might as well do it.
So, I know a lot of these chests are very, very lucrative and strong in the vanilla game. I actually opted out of taking these chests because I felt like the time it takes to get these chests wasn't worth it time-wise. Obviously, there's a few houses which are really nice, and some excess gold. But at this point in the game, gold is almost not needed, which is why I opted out of taking any of those chests.
Yeah, my memory of the Cardi Isles is that it's totally worth it, but in reality, only that forested one is decent money at all. The others are pretty meh.
Yeah, as far as like overall gold output, I want to say it's TFCI or water. Between the gold and items you can sell, I think has the most gold output in a single floor in the game. Obviously you're selling the ribbons you get and your pro rings you get on that floor, which no one's going to do, but I think gold output has the highest amount in the game.
Yeah, that sounds not TFC per se, but that one and mermaids.
Yeah, mermaids, and then there's water 4 just before Kraken. There's a ribbon in there as well.
Now ribbons in the original NES version would sell, I believe, for just 2 gold. And when I picked them up, you equip it, it gives you like 1 defense point, which is worse than any other helmet. You know it sells for 2 gold. I didn't realize that it gave you such massive defense against spells. I would actually pick it up and drop that item.
You know, it makes me wonder if, like, the ribbon obviously is in every Final Fantasy game. It's one of the very few pieces of gear that shows up in every game. If they just ended up just keeping it and just leaving it as good as it is in future games, and just eventually, I think most Final Fantasies now, the ribbon just makes you immune to all status effects.
Yeah, it got nerfed. I'm not sure where in the process. I know by Final Fantasy VII, yeah, it's all status effects. I don't know where it changed though. But yeah, it's almost laughably overpowered in this game. I consider it to be a little bit broken. Once you get one, it's just obviously the best piece of armor in the game, and it neutralizes almost all the enemy spells. So it's a little bit overpowered.
And we see on your side, you're buying pro rings here. They low rolled in this one, which is fine. They still have the resist and a bit of defense to them. It's mostly the resist death that makes it very strong. I actually routed in 3 pro rings on the route in dungeons instead of having to buy them. I'm still not sure if that was worth it on my end. I probably should have just bought them when I'm in Gaia here, and I opted out of it.
Yeah, they give you pretty decent defense too. I believe it's 8 points, which is worth picking up for things like mages.
So I know one of the things we didn't really touch on, and that was the blursings that we could have rolled into outside of key items. One of the ones I felt was probably the strongest you're gonna think that this probably sounds kind of weird, but one of the things I thought was kind of really strong in my testing was the wood armor gives evade. Blursing, I felt was one of the strongest ones that I ran into doing my practice seeds.
That's a nice one. When you equip wood, shield, helmet, and armor, that gives you massive evade such that you usually don't get hit. And we don't use it a whole lot in Randomizer because you have to equip the wood helmet, which means you're not equipping the ribbon, which is just obviously the better thing. But in the vanilla game, you can get that wood set nice and early, and it'll really up your survivability, and you don't get ribbon until much later in the game. So yeah, in vanilla progression, that is nice to have.
And obviously we could have rolled into, casters have warp or telemagic or exit. I found those actually pretty underwhelming because there's only 2 places, maybe 3 in the whole game where it's really worth it. That's obviously Ice Cave. You can just warp straight to the eye grind tile. Waterfall, you buy a warp to get out of Waterfall. And then maybe Earth Cave to get when you're done with the vampire if you don't have the ruby or the rod. And outside of that, there's really no other places we really used warp or exit.
Yeah, the other place in vanilla is if you wanted to do a Topher grind, because there is no exit. You have to use a spell to get back to the overworld. But by then, it's the end of the game anyway, so it's not that important.
Yeah, in Rando, warp and exit, telemagic, I'll take it every time.
It is nice when you can warp out of Marsh Cave without having to risk those fights again. But yeah, so much of the original game was about that endurance match, and they didn't want you skipping ahead. So they said, no, warp is going to be promo locked. You don't get that until after it's pretty much useless. But there's ribbon number 1 in Waterfall. And then ribbon number 2 is in Sea, and number 3 will be in Sky. So you pick those up pretty soon next to each other if you want to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I can say I definitely picked up all 3 ribbons, as well as 3 pro rings. Like, they're too good to not grab. Like, I'm pretty sure even the actual true vanilla speedruns, they grab all 3 ribbons. Actually, they may not grab the one in water. That's pretty far out of the way compared to where the route actually is, so they may skip the one in water.
You can see me walking out of here because there was not a... I think I'm just too low level to actually cast warp at this point. Red mages get their spell points a little bit late, and I'm running at bare minimum level to progress.
So yeah, just over an hour in, I just now promote to my full party of knights and red wizards. I'm pretty sure from here I grab my bottle and then I grab warp, knowing I'm gonna have to go through waterfall and just warp out.
It's a good play, it saves you a couple of minutes. It can be nice to warp out of the mermaids as well, but it's not even that long of a walk. So it's nice to have, but not a must-have.
So I will say that one of the things I didn't do enough research on is that I should have also bought Bane there as well as Warp as a backup for Topher. And I didn't do that.
Yeah, Bane can hit Tiamat and Tia 2 with a little bit of luck. There's also a Bane sword in the sky first floor you go down, and you can use that as an item to give you a burst of that as well.
So yeah, we can see that I am in waterfall here to get my cube and get out. And I pretty much right away grab the bottle. So I at this point I've gained a decent chunk of time back. I would say I'm probably at most 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes behind you at this point.
Yeah, definitely. So this fight here, the Wizard's Head Arse Head, is one of those unrunnables that you might not think would be unrunnable, but it shares space on the realm with pirates, so they both ended up being unrunnable at once. And the randomizer kept that relationship for a long time. It was, I think, 2022, if memory is right, that they finally allowed this fight to be runnable if you wanted it to be.
Another big thing that we kind of glossed over with the ribbon is the defense sword right next to that ribbon in Waterfall. Very powerful weapon to have for more defensive utility with that spell Ruse to give you that increased evasion and just not get hit.
And it's got decent stats if you equip it as well. So the mermaids are holding on to an awful lot of opal equipment, which is second best for your knight, or you can sell it for a lot of money. And thanks to this game, I took a liking to the stone opal. It's a nice little rainbow rock that you can pick up, and as far as gemstones go, it's not it's not cheap, but it's not an expensive one either. So I have one laying around here in the house just because this game was like, oh, opal, that sounds cool, and I actually bought one.
Nice, that's actually really cool.
So a slab fetch quest is one of the longer ones to do. You can't get it until late, then you have to go back to Melman to talk to Dr. Yoon to translate it, then go all the way up to Lefeinian to finally get your chime. As far as fetch quests go, that's certainly the longest walk, and it is the last one of the game to do too.
Alright, so on my screen I have just hit on rack and I am entering Sea Shrine right now, so I am just the mermaid's floor behind you at this point. A little bit of item switching around that I'm kind of checking stats because with the pluses and minuses, vastly different than the vanilla stats that I was looking up on what I wanted to equip. Decided to go with the defense sword because it's just stronger. I should have actually moved the defense sword. Looking back to this, I should have moved the defense sword to my fighter in the second slot. Had the ice sword and defense sword equipped instead of defense and fire. But you know, when you're in the middle of a race and you're not fully thinking of things like that, you can tend to miss stuff like that.
Yeah, Ice Sword is going to help against those water elementals too. They are weak to ice. Of course, on my end, I picked up that Etzcal nice and early thanks to the Adamant Blessing. And so, Etzcal has all those benefits, and it's got good damage. It's easily one of the best items in the game, as you can expect.
Oh, definitely.
Now, if I was playing vanilla after picking up that slab, I might have actually flown out, done the fetch quest, and got the adamant, specifically to get Aztal. But because of the blessings here, I was able to come a little bit sooner. So I'm going more time to Kraken, and then I'll move on to Sky. But I'm starting to take fights in here too, because the fights are worth your experience at this point. So the walk and grind is enough to get you back up to level.
So I will say the only slight advantage I have with my comp as far as gear selection is that I eventually, you'll see as we start to collect more gear through water and then through air, I have one fighter that's designated to pretty much resist magic damage, and I have my other fighter that has all the full gear on for physical damage. So I have 2 outs for carries in Topher, depending on how the Fiends decide to play it. But I know you have the ninja as well, so your damage output's slightly higher than mine, but not by much.
Perhaps. I'm actually ninja's good in vanilla, but I think fighter is just generally better. The rando ups a bunch of stats of the ninja to make it more competitive, so it has double hit percent growth and a few other things to make that ninja be able to really swing fast. Whereas in vanilla, the fighter is going to have, I believe, better stats in every respect, except for black magic, which, like, sure, you can get temper and fast, but other than that, it's not massively influential. Speaking of black magic, I did pick up the Power Gauntlet, which casts Saber, which increases your own damage and hit percent. That is a really nice thing to have, and whether it's a rando run or not, you really want that spell. That ups your damage potential significantly.
Yeah, there's definitely a reason why that in most competitive seeds is an incentivized item, if not buried very deep in the seed to get. Saber in general is just a very strong spell.
Yeah, I believe it's level 7 black magic, which means only a black mage can learn the spell itself, which is not that useful. But with the item, anybody you want to put it to uses it, and then it becomes fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of the things I couldn't fully comprehend as to why Saber was a self-cast only spell when it essentially gives you 2 stacks of the temper cast. So it didn't make sense why it was self-cast when it was just could have been a higher level temper spell. So yeah, you can see on my side, I finished up Mermaids and I warped back out, reset my spell charges, just to dive back in. So I know you ended up walking back out, because I don't think you had warp charges yet, or at least any saved up at that point.
Indeed. Here's my Kraken 1 fight. I'm blowing out that defense sword using fast. A lot of the same strategies you'd see in the rando. I cast that A-lit basically because I had nothing better to do with that white mage, but gave something to do. And Kraken is arguably more dangerous with a script shuffle, whereas things like Lich become less dangerous. Lich's big risk is casting those spells on you that you're not prepared for. Kraken's big risk is hitting you. And when Kraken's instead using skills like Anchor, casting spells, well, that means it's not doing its biggest damage. And as a result, I was able to take that Kraken down, despite being generally a little bit under level at 16, but more or less caught up to at least a reasonable range for this point in the game.
Yeah, right now I'm on the TFC water floor, getting ready to grab my saber bonk, my second ribbon, end to fight Kraken here in a few minutes while you are progressing your way over to the air shrine.
Or trying to, rather. You see, you picked up Slab, but I forgot to actually go pick up the Chime, so I bounced off that Mirage Tower. And they're gone. Oops! And I finally thought to buy a warp at this point too, after it's thoroughly useless.
Yeah, I know as I was going through Water Shrine, I was extremely picky on the fights I wanted to take here in Water, knowing I was over-leveled at this point as far as the speedrun is concerned. Mostly it was the Gershard Big Eye tile or fight was like the only one I was really looking for. There were a few others that I saw that I should have taken but didn't, mostly just to save time at this point.
Yeah, that's smart. Knowing which fights to take and which to skip is a big part of speedrunning these games. So now you see me going into the volcano, and there's some decent treasure in here if you do it in sequence, such as the flame armor, and well, the flame armor is the big one. But there's a few others that might be worth, but since I'm already past Kraken, volcano is just really a go mode. I'm in the area, let's spend the 90 seconds to do it just because you need the orb, and that's something you see. Not really that much different than a rando player. But even in vanilla, you can choose to do volcano early, or you can choose to do it last. The game lets you get away with that.
Yeah, I like volcano. I could see if you do it like, you know, like when you're technically supposed to. This place I could see being incredibly dangerous and probably one of the hardest dungeons in the game.
Yeah, you'd run out of healing very quick just on those lava tiles. And keep in mind, in the original game too, you couldn't buy heal potions 50 at a time. You have to buy one at a time. So that it really discourages you from stocking up. But even if you do stock up, yeah, you chew through them pretty fast.
Yeah, I take down Kraken, hit level 19 with the party. Kraken doesn't let me get out of there free and does take out one of my red mages. Yeah, Kraken down pretty quick for me. I think I am now, I guess you'd say, not a safe level for Topher, but at the range where you could consider going into Topher.
Indeed. When you have low scaling, Topher, a lot of the challenge is the endurance match you're getting in there. So having the encounters turned down a little bit and knowing what you can and can't run from is going to help a lot. You can do it as low as, you know, the high teens level wise. I probably wouldn't feel confident doing it until at least level 25, but I believe I go in there pretty soon too, so we'll see that momentarily.
So yeah, right now I'm doing pretty much my final shopping for the rest of the race. I go through, buy all my white magic for the knights, stock up on my heal potions, buy a couple more houses, things like that, just to make sure I am more than comfortable going into Air Shrine, Volcano, and Topher at the end of the game. Pretty much after this shopping trip, I pretty much just beeline my last 3 areas that I needed.
Those frost wolves hitting the frost spell at you, those can be pretty dangerous too. It did 70 some damage to one of my guys, and that's the risk on the Peninsula of Power. If you get a pack of frost wolves and you use fire 2 first, that's a lot of experience and gold. If they use frost first, you're probably looking at a reset.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, frost, if you're doing the Peninsula Power grind, it's going to hit for 150 damage. Your party's maybe 120 hit points.
Yeah. Now this Mirage Tower has some good treasure too. This is where you can max out your knight. You got the Aegis Sealed on first floor, Dragon Armor on the next floor. A lot of the treasure early game is just not worth picking up, but once you get into Sea and Sky, there's some really good items in there that's worth making a bit of a detour for.
So you can see I'm finishing up Lefeinian, get my chime here to get ready to head into air. And one of the things that I've kind of like ingrained into my brain playing rando is just, if I have warp or exit, I instinctively just use it now in certain spots just to save, even 5 seconds instead of walking out of a town.
Yep, all those little things add up fast. Even just holding in the button when you do a screen transition and not having to let your brain process that adds up to, in a typical run, it adds up to like 3 minutes. And all those little walkouts, that can easily add up to another minute. So when you're playing in one of these FFR tournaments and you're not doing that, you lose by 3 minutes. Oh, now you know why.
Yeah, I can say when I was coming into this most recent winter tournament and then transitioning into the Duck Derby, the person I had like mentoring me and coaching me 1v1, every time I didn't use warp or exit to get out faster, yeah, I would just get yelled at in my ear to just like use warp, use exit, like every time, and now it's pretty much just ingrained into my head to use it every time.
Yeah, when you save in the end, as soon as you hear that first note of the song, you can slam the reset button and exit the town that way. And I find myself doing that even in a no overworld seed, where that doesn't actually help you, but it just becomes a habit. Like you do it because it does save, those seconds add up over the course of a race.
Well, even in no overworld, they're saving. So I'm one of those people that I will time even the smallest of things out just to see how many frames I can squeeze out of anything. Even in no overworld, by resetting out, even in no overworld, you're saving 2.5 seconds every time you do it.
Wow.
And you figure you're doing it upwards of 20, 25 times in an overworld seed, you're saving a minute just from resetting out of an in, even in no overworld.
Amazing. It all adds up. So on my screen, I just spent some time fiddling in the menu, which is a bit of a time waste. I knew the ribbon was up in that corner, so I wanted to go get it, but the inventory's full, so I dropped something and then picked up the wrong box and had to go back and do it again. And that kind of menu fiddling is something that can cost you in a high level match as well.
Oh yeah, some of the highest end players in this community, their menuing is just on point, top notch. You rarely see mistakes, and that's kind of one of the things that I've kind of tried to pick up is how to menu not only fast but efficiently. And I kind of use this vanilla run to kind of help work on that skill, knowing exactly what items I'm picking up when and where they're at in the inventory when I pick them up, so I know exactly what to move when and where.
That takes a little bit of brain power, but once you master it can really add up. Like, I spend a lot of time fidgeting around in menus, so that's one place where it's relatively easy to beat me.
So I still will shout out one runner if you want to watch just like true supreme menuing is Crab Cakes. Her menuing is probably some of the best I've ever seen. Go watch her races, or go watch her VODs, and it is so crisp when you watch her menu.
Indeed. Yeah, she's just, I'd say at least 10% faster at every little thing in this game than I am, and that's not even looking at differences in decision making. There's a reason Crab Cakes is one of the top level champions.
Yeah, reason why she also has her own role in the Discord, like very deservingly has her own personal role. Yeah, it looks like on your end here, you're at the Bridge of Destiny, coming up to Tia. I'm only a floor and a half behind you at this point in air, but I'm also a whole volcano behind you still.
That's true, but remember, Volcano is about 90 seconds. It's compared to just the cost of one wipe or even one bad battle where you have to waste time switching to a backup plan because your fighter died. Like, that can disappear so fast. I like to say a race isn't over till it's over.
So I know when I enter Volcano, I take my final grind in Volcano. And I get a little indecisive when I'm in there on which grind I want to take, whether it's the Agama or the Red D grind. So I lose a tiny bit of time bouncing back and forth between the two. Just because I wanted to get that level 22, just for that safety net in Topher.
Yeah, level 22 is a good, solid thing. At that point, you should not be taking a wipe. And I do not grind anymore. I think I'm level 19 at this point, and decide I'm just gonna go for it. And, well, I could spoil ahead a little bit, but will it work out? This race isn't over yet, let's just say that. So here in Topher, I turned on the flag that moves the bats from this middle room out to the outside just so you don't bump into them. But they're one of the more interesting NPCs to talk to at this point, because those bats are the old sky warriors of whom your airship used to belong. And now that the orbs are shining again, they're able to speak English once more, and they will talk to you and give you a little bit of history to the game. Which, for one screen at a time, that's where a good chunk of the story is, those 5 screens.
Yeah, that's, again, more vanilla knowledge that I didn't know that makes me kind of want to push myself to have a, quote, casual playthrough of the game, more or less just kind of walking around talking to all the NPCs to learn more of the deep lore of the game.
Yeah, and some of that stuff is useful if you want to play the bingo game, because Shoom Bobby really enjoys pulling out random facts. Like, buy the bile from Underhill. Well, that's the name of the caravan dealer. You only know that from an NPC. There's a handful of people who have random names like that, and he likes to, pull those out, and usually in bingo will tell you that in the, on the bingo's card too. But it's just a little bit of fun flavor to have.
So yeah, we see here I am just finishing up Tia, hitting level 20. You're working your way through Topher here. I know some of the vanilla speedruns, they will actually take a floor 3 grind if they feel they're slightly underleveled. You're level 19. I probably would have personally taken the grind, the level 3 grind, but you're playing super risky. I know in our post-race conversation that you had felt I was either right there with you or just behind you, and you kind of needed to play a little bit risky there.
Yeah, when I took that early Lich Wipe, it felt like it was going to be a quick beginning, and then I just slammed into a wall. And from that point on, I'm like, I've already lost 10 minutes on this. This could be over any time. I think you said one of your practice runs you did in an hour 35. So you look at the clock, it says an hour 28 right now. So that's in my mind that Topher's a 7-minute dive, and I don't have time to spare at this point.
Yeah, I think that was my fastest practice, was that 135. Everything just, the key items from the starting classes kind of lined up really well. The grinds were near spot on. Like just everything RNG-wise just kind of worked out very well, which is what gave me that time. But most of my other runs weren't even below 140.
So you see that I'm using the heal potion giving Lich respect, and that's again because Lich has nuke in the vanilla game, and I know there's a very good chance that's going to pop up before I can do the 500 damage it takes to kill him. But it ended up I got turn order and actually took him down. So you want to be prepared for that nuke, but doing good fast damage can still save you from all that pain.
Yeah, one of the things I didn't know up until doing this specific race is that all of the elementals are unrunnable fights. Earth, fire, water, and air, they're all unrunnables. I didn't know that up until I started doing these runs.
I did successfully run from airs at one point in my thing though. I think air is unrunnable if they come alone, but if they're packed from something else, or something like that. But that's one of the reasons why that change run to wait thing is quite a game changer, because if you don't know, you might assume that all these things you're not going to run from them because they're trap tiles, or because it just doesn't make logical sense, or you try and it fails, but you could have just had bad luck. So when it tells you just outright wait, then you know that it's not even worth trying. I have to take this, and you don't waste your turn on a futile act like running. I'm now through Carry 2, and Carry 2 punched my white mage out. Carry 2 is another fiend that can be quite ugly if you have a little bit of bad luck, because just like Kraken, she hits a lot of number of times.
Yeah, I just... Carrie is deceptively hard. Even though she has a slightly lower health pool, she can just randomly throw nasty stuff at you, and next thing you know, you're starting back at floor 1.
And now Kraken 2, you don't have to tell any rando player that Kraken 2 is going to be a thing. And that first strike, 8 hits, more than half the hit points just knocked right out. And the knight's still standing, so I'm continuing to temper, but then Kraken's like, no, you lay down.
Yeah, one thing I've kind of felt, it might be confirmation bias, but I feel Kraken is the hardest refight Fiend in the climb, like sometimes I'd say even depending on how Tia and Chaos roll, could even be harder than those two.
Oh, definitely. Kraken's often the great gatekeeper of a seed.
So yeah, I'm here in Volcano on the Agama, doing the Agama grind here at the end, getting to level 22. I'm gonna say this is probably the point that pretty much put the nail in the coffin for me. If I had skipped this grind, we would probably be, I'd probably be at most one floor behind you in Topher at this point.
And this fight is not going well for me. I'm hoping the Zeus Bonk will take him down, but I lost ton of Kraken's hit points. I think there's a total of 900, and I'm not sure how much damage I did here, but it wasn't enough. At this point, I arguably should have just reset a couple minutes sooner, because once the night went down, that fight was not going well. But I was really hoping that a little bit of Zeus Bonk, a little bit of other spells might go, and then I can life everyone back up and keep going. But no, it wasn't meant to be. I took the Kraken 2 wipe, which reset, 5+ minutes on the clock. But you'll note that I did not go back to grind, and that's just because my thought was if I used that defense sword a few more times, I could have survived that hit. Or if I swapped party order and put someone else in front, it might not have been devastating. And so I called that an unforced error and just went back in, hoping to adjust the strategy and hopefully do it right this time.
Yeah, my side, I hit level 22 on the Agamas. I decide to head into the dragon fight, the red D fights here, to see if I can squeeze out one more level before heading into Topher. This was more or less, at this point, a gamble of hoping that if you're in Topher, you're struggling. And just hope that my levels pay off to let me gain that ground.
Normally I would say that's a good play, because that is true. If someone hasn't finished by land, like, it probably means nasty Topher and you want to be prepared for it. But just because this is vanilla stats, you have a pretty good idea what's coming, and you could adjust a little bit more precisely going into it. So, smart play, but I think in these circumstances, yeah, it probably cost you.
Yeah, because at 22, I probably should have just been like, okay, I'm safe, let's go kill Carry. And if I do that, I'm probably rolling into Topher as you're coming up to Carry. So, one more bad wipe from you, and all of a sudden I'm in the lead.
Right. So I'm in this dive on a different place in the encounter table. First dive you saw those unrunnable fire elementals. This time you're seeing something a little bit different, and that can be good or it can be bad. It's just because I didn't think to hard reset. Sometimes I like to just go.
Yeah, playing rando and then learning the vanilla game with this one, kind of learning how to manipulate it more. I was able to learn a lot more than just the base hard and soft resetting on just counting your step encounters and knowing what certain packs are when in this step counter, on how to avoid it based on whether you want to hard reset or soft reset if you take the Topher wipe.
Yes. There is one race I watched in Lorando, I think it was from a 2019 tournament, where the runner had such a hard time in Ice Cave because there was a pack of just absolute horror. And being out of other options, that runner resorted to mapping out the entire encounter table on the stairs and ultimately went in and took a fight on those little the place where there's just 4 steps and 2 sets of stairs, taking an extra fight there so he wouldn't have to take it on Lynette's floor, and was able to avoid that. And that's the kind of precision running that you hope you don't have to do in the rando, because you're going to feel so far behind spending 15 minutes mapping out the table. But then when it works out, it feels like a real accomplishment.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there are times myself, while learning this game more in depth over the last 6 months, is memorize. Like, at times you have to memorize the step count and memorize what encounters are where, and figuring out when it's safe to stair transition, when to burn steps, things like that, and kind of know what you're coming into when.
Yeah. And there I just got through an unrunnable water elemental pack. And you know, that was an expensive fight. It took quite a while and took one of my guys down using up a life charge. So that's a case where knowing what fight you're coming and trying to avoid something like that would have paid some dividends.
So I know part of my research was if a black belt comp was worth it, and that was one thing that I massively struggled with. And I actually almost went off the rails and actually went with a black belt comp for this race. I don't remember what the key item was. I want to say it was like Chime or something like that, or Q. Knowing that you could red D grind here at the very end of the game, and just letting the red D blaze your entire party dead, and just punching with the black belt, and only doing that single grind for pretty much the entire seed.
Yeah, the black belts are very strong once you get them up to level. They're horrible early game. I guess not horrible because the nunchucks do solidly okay, but they're certainly not great early game. But then late game, yeah, once you get them grounded up, they're strong. And the rando will sometimes cut the black belt crit rate in half from what vanilla is, just because they have such ridiculously high stats once you get them up in vanilla. Sometimes you want to nerf them a bit in rando so you're not taking them every seed.
Yeah, I know. Oh, actually, it was this morning. Actually, before we started this, I was watching. For those who don't know who Shane Zell is, he is the world record holder in pretty much every major category of FF1. The vanilla game. He was actually doing a nunchucks only challenge run. 4 black belts, nunchucks only, and every level up. I was watching him for like an hour this morning. Every level up, if his black belts didn't get plus strength on it, he would reset and grind that level up again.
Yeah, strength is only beneficial if you have a weapon equipped, so usually on black belts you don't care because you want to unequip that weapon and let their fist do the damage. But nunchucks only, it completely changes it like that. And the nunchucks, they're okay early, they suck late game, you just want to unequip them. So, it's certainly a challenging run, I'll say that. So looking back at my screen, I'm finally through Kraken and Tia 2. The white mage is out in front to take those punches, as I'd rather the white mage die than the knight die. And now I'm about to prepare to go into the Chaos fight, knowing that Chaos has 2,000 hit points and quite a few spells, including Cure 4, Nuke, and a lot of those high level elemental spells, Swirl and whatnot. So you have to be prepared for this, and I'm gonna hope that my plan works. Meanwhile, you of course are, you have decent levels, all orbs. I think your dive is going to be successful first time.
Yeah, I ended up taking the grind all the way. I had 2 people at 24 and said, alright, I'm good at 24 on these 2 people. The other 2 people are going to hit 24 on the climb. I have my proper spell charges. I know I can just fly through this. When I enter Topher, I see you haven't finished yet, so I'm just like, okay. My thought process is, you're up the tower, but I didn't think you were on Chaos yet. So like I have the race room open at this point, thinking also, like at worst you're on Kraken maybe Tia. I didn't think you were on Chaos at this point. And like as I'm climbing, I just the minutes are clocking, you're just going through, and you're not dot dunning it, you're not dot dunning yet. And I'm thinking, did you wipe? Are we on the same floor? Like, what happened, kind of thing. Like my thought process is, I'm finishing this no matter what. At this point, I'm in Topher. It's been a mostly smooth run. I played super safe.
Nope, but look how close that came. I was about one hit from taking Chaos down when he pops the Cure 4. And then he comes back and does spells. That fighter is down to 34 hit points, and he didn't decide to even lit 2 it in, which probably would have killed me at this point. So it took a lot of luck that I didn't end up taking that wipe. And if I did, you would have sprung right ahead and easily taken the win.
Yeah, I will say, when you did finish, I did forfeit in the race room, like immediately after. And as you can see, I continue to play because I wanted to finish the run. But yeah, at this point, we're talking in the race room. But yeah, huge GG's to you for getting through the run and taking Topher at a much lower level than most people would do.
Yeah, I believe I was level 19, which is like danger Topher. But knowing again what the stats are, like it's a little bit less than of a risk than if you're playing Randomizer because you don't know what to encounter in there. But certainly a risk, and like I said, it took a lot of luck for it to pay off.
Oh, definitely. I know on the climb as we're talking, I'm just like, I'm gonna grab Masa on the way up. I know where it's at, just because I grabbed Masa, why not? Even though I knew my party was more than capable of taking on the Fiends. But yeah, I will say this was a lot of fun to do. I learned way more about the game than I even thought was possible doing this run when you proposed a modified vanilla flag set, and me going, alright, I guess I'm learning the vanilla speedrun in a week.
I have to say you did well. You did really well.
I mean, also you and I talked a lot, the week leading up to this race, and were giving me pointers and advice and tips and everything throughout the entire thing. Whereas there could have been some people that just like, figure it out on your own kind of thing, and you didn't do that. You gave me resources and strategies and pointed me places to look stuff up, and that definitely made it a much easier experience.
Yeah, a lot of the fun of the game for me is talking about it, and it's fun to share the skills. It's fun to get on and have this conversation now, and that's something a lot of the FFR folks do. That's why we have the Duckling program, and it's to share the fun of the game. And it's not fun when you just lose all the time. You want to have that, that enjoyable equal challenge.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, myself. I just finished up my most recent Duck Derby run. Had a near improbable run into the finals. Just fell short, but yeah, I learned so much between the Winter Tournament, the Duck Derby, this one specific race. I mean, I am definitely hoping to have an impact in future tournaments as I learn the game more.
The one thing that's cool about this game is when you start, your first run might be, 2.5 hours, but then you learn a few techniques and you're down to an hour 50, learn a few more and you're down to, an hour 20. There's so many little things add up fast over time that you can learn a few tricks and make a big difference. And that's one thing I like about it. It's relatively approachable.
However, one of the things I will say about FF1, so I play every Final Fantasy randomizer except FF6. I've never played FF6 before. This is probably the easiest one of all the Final Fantasy randomizers that are out there. That's not saying it's not easy, it's still a very hard game, but it's probably the easiest to pick up, I'm gonna say. Seems
fair. This is the only one. I did play one seed of Mystic Quest as well. but I've never actually played the randos for the other Final Fantasies. And a lot of it's just because this game has a soft spot in me because I've played it so many times as a kid, and it's just fun to go back to the past.
Yeah, no, my first Final Fantasy was actually Final Fantasy 5. We never got FF5 in the US originally. We got the PS1 port when the Anthology series came out. So FF5 was like my first Final Fantasy game. So which is, for me, Final Fantasy 5 is like my Final Fantasy that I enjoyed the most. Which is why I play in the randomizer. I am one of the tournament admins for that one. I help run the community. Actually, I think they're in the middle of a tournament right now. I'm not even part of that tournament because I was busy focusing on FF1. But yeah, all the Final Fantasy randomizers, join all of them. They're all fun.
Final Fantasy V is the one I've played most recently. My brother got it when it came out on PlayStation 1, so he played it. When was that? Like, 2000 something. But then I never played it myself until 2020. And my baby was just born. And while I'm holding her up all night anyway, I could pop a controller in my hands. So I went through some games that I did Final Fantasy 4 and 6, which I just haven't played for a long time. And then 5, which was my first time actually playing through that one myself. And I feel my thoughts on 5 might not be super popular because I feel like the soundtrack to it was the weakest of that whole bunch. And the music is really what resonates with me in these games. But the job system is always a lot of fun to play with.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I loved about it was the job system. Obviously I had played other RPGs before then, just that was my first Final Fantasy. And then obviously they moved that feature over into Tactics, which is why Tactics is like my next favorite Final Fantasy game. But yeah, the randomizer for 5, when you start randomizing the jobs and then the spells and everything is so involved with it, this is my own personal opinion. 5 is arguably for me the hardest Final Fantasy randomizer to learn, just because there's so much involved with it. Plus, there's 50 something bosses you have to learn.
That's a lot.
Yeah, I'm here on Kraken 2. I'm pretty much flying through Topher right now with being much higher level. The fiends aren't really hitting for me for very much, and I'm hitting back for way harder than you were hitting them for when you're doing your climb, just because of the sheer levels. I'm level 24. I have that extra hit breakpoint than you did. I have that fourth hit or a fifth or whatever it is at 24. Yeah, for those who didn't know, bottom right corner of the Tia room is where the moss is at in the vanilla game. I didn't know that up until 3 days before this race when you told me about it.
Yep. Yeah, another fun chest is on the carry floor if you go off to the side of the leg to find the second katana. But since the first katana is a gimme on Sky Flurry, there's basically no need to ever go down there. But in Bingo, we like to force you to go check those boxes just because it's a long walk. Bingo likes making you take long walks.
Speaking of Bingo, we have that tournament coming up. I think signups are still going.
Yes, we do. The planning is just about done with that. What's the time? I think that's next month.
Yeah, I think signups go until July 6th. I don't have the wiki pulled up or any information on it pulled up right now.
Where is it?
Alright, let me pull up the rules doc so I actually have information on this tournament.
I know the planning committee just finalized the squares not too long ago, which means it's just about go time.
Yeah, it looks like signups close June 20th, so there's actually 8 days left to sign up for this tournament. Round 1 starts the day after, June 21st, so the tournament starts in a week.
want to get on over to FinalFantasyRandomizer.com and click on that Discord link if you want to join that. I'm sure there's still slots, so sign up as soon as you can if you have any interest. Bingo, it tends to do open world, and the flags themselves are nice and fast, but you get these little challenges to do to make your way to the end. And this year we're doing lockout bingo, which means you want to get to the squares before the other player, because once you get it, they're not allowed to get it. So it's going to be a little bit different from last year, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I obviously wasn't playing the community last year, but I don't even know what the bingo. I think it was triple bingo or anti-triple bingo last year.
Yeah, we played double anti-bingo last year.
Okay. Yeah, if I remember correct, there's actually 2 win conditions this year. You can either get a single bingo and defeat chaos, or lock your opponent out of the board by getting 13 tiles first.
Yep, it should be a lot of fun. It's going to be different, like I said, different from last year, but new in its own way. So that whole lockout aspect is going to be interesting. When you see someone, they're about to connect 5 and get bingo, you might want to go and snipe that to shut that off. So it's going to be fun to watch, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be all sorts of strategies that people are going to come up with in ways they want to play, and that could be just ruined in one tile, and all of a sudden you're changing your entire strategy, like, instantly on the fly.
I love it.
Yeah, here I am taking on Chaos. This fight, I'm going to be honest, does not last long. I have one night with them, also one night with the Excalibur. And it's pretty much your typical, I guess you'd say, rando chaos fight. Just buff your fighters up and just press A. Just hold A.
Yep, I saw you using the defense sword in Invis. That's a good plan. It neutralizes most of his physical attacks. Chaos likes to cast a lot of spells too, but Ribbon's neutralizing most of those too. And doing almost 800 damage in one swing. That is, like I said, he's got 2,000 hit points, so he's not going to last long.
Yeah, he cast Cure 4 and immediately came back with, 1,000 damage in one hit, instantly putting back to half health, so...
And that's it, GG's to you.
Yeah, even though I forfeit in the race room, looks like I think my time was like 155 even or something like that. But yeah, like I said, a lot of fun. Learned a lot. Am I gonna play vanilla outside of a casual playthrough? Probably not. This was hard. This was incredibly hard. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This was very hard, but definitely rewarding, and I definitely recommend if people want to play the rando to at least do one playthrough the vanilla game, even if it's the vanilla-ish with the quality of life. Definitely play. You'll learn a lot playing the vanilla game.
Yeah, definitely. And I appreciate you doing all this with me and again getting on today to talk about it. This is fun. I've been meaning to talk about vanilla on this channel for a long time, so it's nice to finally have a chance to do it.
Yeah, that's kind of why these randomizers exist, is because of the vanilla game and people wanting to change it up, even myself, who plays other randomizers, Final Fantasy, I play other Zeldas as well, Zelda randomizers. I played through the vanilla game of pretty much every game I play a randomizer of at this point, so just having the knowledge of the vanilla game helps the rando knowledge exponentially.
Indeed. And it makes you appreciate some ways that the rando makes it easier than the frustration of the old NES hard.
Yeah, ADR, thanks for putting this together. I know we had discussed it afterwards about doing this vodcast of this race. Most people are seeing the results, but that's fine. This was fun. Definitely would want to do it again, another vodcast like this of future races, even if they're just vanilla races.
Absolutely. And again, this was WindFox. I'm ADR, and we want to thank everybody for watching it with us. And if this is your first time, you want to play the game too. We often randomize a heck of a lot more than you saw here, but it's all up to you. The randomizer lets you check off some 80 different settings and flags. You can do as many or as few as you want, and that's over at FinalFantasyRandomizer.com. Then there's a link to our Discord if you want to come in and chat with us. We've tried to be nice, and if you want to learn how to beat us, we usually will do that too. So head on over to FinalFantasyRandomizer.com and join in on the fun. And thank you, everybody, and good night. Or good afternoon, I guess.